So SummerSlam. All right, let's go ahead and knock the two big things out of the way. We'll talk about them, and then we'll kind of like give a quick breakdown into SummerSlam. The biggest thing is Brock Lesnar is back, and despite how you might feel about him, that is a big deal. Um, the other big thing is Seth Rollins did actually end up faking the injury, and he cashed in, and he took the belt from CM Punk right after one of the most grueling matches I think I've ever seen CM Punk in. So we will address those as they come up. But night one, night two. Um, Night one was okay. I think night two was better personally, which is so crazy because when we do this thing where we like to just bet for bragging rights, and with the exception of like one person, we got like all of those wrong except for Naomi.
What,
And
night two? Yeah, we did.
I got Naomi winning and the Wyatt Six winning, and then everything else I was wrong. I didn't bet on the final match, but if I did, I would have bet Cena, and that would have knocked me out.
Why didn't you bet on the final match? We have a rule. Nobody gets out of the bet.
So I forgot. That wasn't me trying to not do it. I completely forgot. Then I looked down like mid match, and I was like, that's blank.
I see.
But yeah, so night one. Night one opened with a match that we ended up having to watch in post because they screwed us and we got the time wrong. Like 6 different locations all told us different times. Anywhere between starting at 3 to starting at 6 to starting at 7. And so we were like, okay, well, most PLEs start at 7. 6 is probably the pre-show because that's what they usually do. So we hopped in 45 minutes late because one of the other people that came had pulled it up on their phone and they were like, hey, kind of looks like there's a match going on right now. So we watched that in post. It was Jay and Roman versus B&B Security. B&B Security took the L on that one. Roman and Jay won like I pretty much said they were going to. Would you like to talk about why you felt like they needed to win that?
Yeah, that might be the only match where I'm like, it wasn't the only match where I was not satisfied with how it ended, but it was the only, because you're not supposed to like the way all these matches end. They're telling a story, but it wasn't the only one where I felt simultaneously like not only did I not like the way this ended because of what I personally wanted, but I felt narratively unsatisfied because Bronson and Braun, they did their thing with Roman, and they yanked the shoes and all that. They made this huge deal of all of that, and then they go in there and they take an L when it's actually time for you to show up and prove that that's not all bravado or that's not all just peacocking. Like, you got to show that on the day you can get it done. And from what I hear across the channels that I'm listening to, the general feeling is that given what Seth did, that loss doesn't matter. But I don't personally feel that way. I feel like for me to take an entire group seriously, the entire group got to be serious. Like, my favorite music group is Dirty Loops. And why I love that group so much is that if it's time for a bass solo, that dude gonna kill it. If it's time for a keyboard solo, that guy's gonna kill it. And if it's time for a drum solo, he's gonna kill it. Like, I play that stuff on repeat. But any one of them performs when it's time to perform. And the 3 of them make magic together because all 3 of them are dangerous. With Seth's group, I feel like Seth is the one who's probably not going to lose. Braun is the one who's going to do the real damage. And Bronson is the guy there to keep the group humble because he's not really he's Monday Night dangerous. He's we need an angle dangerous. He's not show up on the day of the match dangerous. And if your group or a member of your group isn't show up on the day of the match dangerous, then the way I see it, your group isn't dangerous. It's not that Monday and Friday doesn't count. It's not that it's not canon or anything like that. but they're the filler episodes. You know what I mean? It's everything in the Goku versus Frieza fight before Goku kills Frieza or throws the thing back and presumably kills Frieza. At the end of the day, no matter what the fight looked like, you judge the winner of the fight based on who comes out on top. And at the end, when it's time to wrap the story up, Goku beats Frieza. So I feel like B&B or Seth's group is feigning dangerousness, but they're not really. I mean, even the fake injury angle, we'll get there in a second, but even the fake injury angle, to me, I'm like, are you dangerous or are you just a shiesty heel? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know, because when Seth was champion the first time and he was a fighting champion, he was dangerous because if you fight him, he'll just beat you because he's just built like that. But this time it's like you're lying and you're tricking the med stat. Like, it made for a great moment. Well, broke my heart. It made for a great narrative moment. But I don't know, man. Like, I want my villains to feel like they're insurmountable, at least at the beginning. You know, I want that Savitar moment where you show up and you just drag the Flash through the Speed Force and you're like, holy shit, how am I have no answers. I don't want you to get humbled 5 minutes after your debut, because then for the rest of the show, however long it's going to go, whether it's going to go 10 episodes, 20 episodes, or 50 episodes, I'm going to feel like we already beat you. And now we're just repeating.
Yeah. Me personally, while I understand what you're saying, and to a degree, I think I agree with you. I think part of the narrative in that, the thing is, with Seth being the guy that is dangerous, we had talked about this a little bit previously, night of, actually. I had made the comment, I was like, Seth is the one that needs to be dangerous because he's the leader. And then his two lackeys, while they don't necessarily not need to be dangerous, I feel like it is okay for them to be less dangerous, because most of the time, depending on who they're going up against, they are the ones that take that W. Specifically, Braun Breaker, who is kind of the breakout star in this group here. You put Braun Breaker in a match with most people, and most people lose that match. Bronson Reed is kind of where it feels like there's a weak link, but as the old saying goes, you're only as strong as your weakest link. So if your weakest link is taking pins, like at SummerSlam, it doesn't matter how many shoes he takes, we can beat him. I don't necessarily think that that's a bad thing, because I think at some point Seth is going to whip them into shape. I think something big does need to change, however. And me personally, I think what needs to happen, as much as I won't like it in the sense of I don't particularly like heels, I would like it because I hate the Judgment Day. I think they need Finn and JD's belts.
Yeah, they need to be draped. They need to be dripping. I used the same comparison with you that day. It needs to be the Team Toguro angle, where for a good portion of the Dark Tournament arc, Toguro was handling business himself. He was the one that you had seen do these massive feats of strength from the time he had been introduced in the show, even before the Dark Tournament arc started. In fact, that's why they entered the thing to begin with. It's like, hey, by the way, that victory was fraudulent. Let me show you what I can really do. And you're like, oh my God, this is... And if
you don't show up, I will kill you.
Yeah. And you spend all this time being scared of Toguro. And then they do that one episode where Team Toguro has to advance, and the other members of the team show up. And they're like, yeah, he didn't really feel like playing today, so we're going to handle it. And for the first time, you see that, oh no, it's not Toguro in his group. It's Team Toguro. All these niggas is dangerous. Every single one of them. And they even got bold, because when you got to the final round, to set the stage, while you can make the argument that Kurama would have beaten Karasu because he did kill him, Karasu won. Mm-hmm. They give the first round to Team Toguro, and you're like, oh, I hope you came to play, because they came to play. There was no weak link of that group. And every single member of our group had to step up and figure it out. And certain and And it would have been so easy for them to pull. If they were going to pull a move like that, it would have been easy for them to do that to somebody like Kuwabara. Because Kuwabara is almost there to eat pins. Like in the wrestling world, Kuwabara is the member of the team that you let take the L's so the team can seem touchable, and then you give them the X Factor moments. But they didn't do it to Kuwabara. They did it to Kurama.
Yeah.
Like, you're like, oh, one of our most proficient members of the group just set us back. This is a dangerous team.
Yeah.
That's how you establish, in my opinion, that's how you establish danger. If you want me to believe that anyone can lose on any given day, then anyone has to lose on any given day. You can't just use the guys that it's easy to set up for the pin. You have to be bold and give the pin to the person you don't expect to take the pin. That's why I was so surprised at Crown Jewel. I figured Roman and the Bloodline reuniting was going to end in a loss because they didn't have that cohesion they had before. Would never have predicted that Roman was going to take that pin.
Yeah. To Solo,
yeah. But as soon as he did take the pin, I was like, oh, this new Bloodline is legit. Until they messed it up.
Crapped.
Yeah. But that's, that's why I agree with you. They definitely, I think the easiest way to do it is to give them the gold. But even if they don't give them the gold, they definitely need to start winning. I'm not going to take this Bronson Reed, Shula Fala, Tribal Thief thing seriously unless he goes in there and starts winning. And he doesn't have to pin Roman on a Monday night. That doesn't need to happen. He doesn't even necessarily have to pin Roman, but you got to give these guys some real contenders, and they have to win. And the people who are looking the weakest, ergo Bronson in this case, needs to be the one getting some of those wins. I know you don't. I don't understand how intricate wrestling is, obviously, because I don't work in the industry. But I know from what I've observed that you want to keep your strong guys looking strong, so you let them be the one to get the victories and everything like that. You want Braun. You want us to remember that Braun Breaker is Braun Breaker, so he's going to keep spearing people into Kingdom Come. And Seth is your champion, so he's going to keep stomping people into hell. But Bronson Reed can do tsunamis on more than just Tozawa. You know what I mean? Like, let him go in there. Let him pin a Sheamus, something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I could agree with that. These won't be in order. These will just be what I remember. I do think next up, though, was Tiffany Stratton versus Jade Cargill. And I'm actually a little shocked that Tiffany won that. I thought mainly because, like, they've really strapped a rocket to Jade Cargill post-injury. And, she dealt with Naomi however she dealt with Naomi. And I was like, okay, it's probably time to give her the belt. And no, she won. How she lost, though, I did kind of like the angle that they were setting up, which is, even though Jade Cargill comes from a different promotion, she's still a little wet behind the ears, as it were. Whereas Tiffany, although she is so young, she has a bit more experience, at least within this ecosystem. And that was her way of taking that advance. While you were out for a year recovering and getting yourself back together, there's still a little bit of ring rust there. I was doing this for 2-3 years down at NXT, 2-3 years here, really setting a name for myself. I thought it was a solid angle.
Yeah, I think because usually when you want to give somebody a L and you don't want them to look weak because they're just obsessed with that, there's either something cheap that happens, like a ref bump or a turnbuckle, or somebody interferes or something like that. I like that it was just, you just made a mistake. You pinned her too close to the ropes. If you had a little more ring awareness, you would have won, because she didn't kick out. She got the rope.
Right. And
she was able to get the rope because you jaded her just a little too close. And if you get that opportunity next time, I'm sure you'll keep that mistake in mind and you'll fix it. There are ways to show a person just got outplayed this time without resorting to cheap tricks, because some people are just more experienced than other people. Some people are just better at it than other people. I personally think WWE needs to play some of these matches a little more straight, more often, and just accept that. I think fans are strong enough mentally to accept that sometimes you're going there and you lose.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean you suck.
Yeah.
It just means you lost.
Yeah. There was one match I did forget. Raquel Rodriguez and Roxanne Perez lost the tag team titles
Thank
to,
God.
yeah, right, to Charlotte Flair and Alexa Bliss. I just thought it was really nice to, and I said this last time when we were talking about Evolution, but I just thought it was really nice to hear people finally chanting for Charlotte Flair. Like, she does the chops and everybody's going, woo! And, people are excited to see her. When she came back after the Royal Rumble, she just got booed almost out of the building. And while I am not necessarily the biggest Charlotte Flair fan,
I am.
Yeah, sure.
Oh, I love that woman.
I do like Charlotte Flair. When I came back to wrestling, really the first thing I watched was WrestleMania 23 with this guy.
39.
Thank you. I said 23 because it was in 2023. WrestleMania 39. Charlotte Flair was going up against Rhea Ripley, and not really doing much research, just doing enough to be like, oh, okay, Charlotte Flair would be somebody who I would like. Rhea Ripley, probably not. And watching that match up until Rhea, Io, and Bianca Belair, and maybe even just Rhea and Io at Evolution, like, that was the best women's match, period. And I was like, oh, what a time to be a wrestling fan.
Yeah, that's a good one. I came in when the game was good, bro.
Yeah. So that being like my first real exposure to Charlotte Flair, I was like, yeah, I'm kind of vibing with her. I thought she was cool. She, had a great run with Becky Lynch and someone else, I forget, when they were going up against Damage Control. Was it Ronda Rousey?
Damage Control? I think you might have that. That was Lita, not Tiffany, Trisha, and that was Lita, Trisha, and Becky. Those were the three that went up against Damage Control.
I know, no. There was a moment, because I'll never forget the moment where Charlotte came out in like that like skin colored glittery suit, and she had those heels, and she took the heels off, ran around, and she kicked someone in the face, but it caused the DQ for the person that was in the match.
Oh, so Bianca was facing Io for the title because Io cashed in on her. She won it. No. Not Io, Asuka. She was facing Asuka for the title. And Charlotte had beef with Asuka, I think it was.
Something like that.
Yeah,
I remember
like
Damage Control being involved.
Yeah. And I think Charlotte was going to try to hit somebody in Damage Control, and then I think she missed and hit Asuka, but Asuka was the one in the match.
Right.
Which is how it got turned into a triple threat.
Right.
And then Io cashed in.
Yeah. Which that little mini series was amazing. And that's really what for me it was like, okay, I really like Charlotte Flair here. So when she came back,
like the figure 8, bro.
The figure 8 is cool.
I love the figure 8.
When she came back and she started getting booed out of the building, and they turned her into like a little mini heel, I was like, this doesn't really work for me, just because I don't really believe it. Apparently, like, not her as a person, but apparently that's kind of what she's used to doing. So that's why people were booing her. But for me, I was like, my first exposure to you was like a relatively decent person, so I don't see it. But yeah, I was really glad that they won that. Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. I was really glad that they won that. One, because I don't care about the Judgment Day, and two, because I've said since it was, I believe, the night after Elimination Chamber, when that Monday, when Alexa Bliss and Charlotte Flair like first had inklings of potentially working together. Like, it was just a backstage segment where Charlotte Flair was walking and Alexa Bliss was like, oh, by the way, I'm here. I was like, those two are going to make a fantastic tag team. And now here we are months later, and I get to cash in on that. So
I just love the moment of Evolution when I'm sitting there with my wife, because my wife really does not like Charlotte Flair. And, the tag team match starts and Charlotte comes out and she's all, she's talking her crap. Like, what are you doing? Blah, 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 blah. And her partner comes out because she didn't know at that time that Charlotte's partner was Alexa Bliss. And for context, my wife loves Alexa Bliss. So like, hey, if you want your girl to succeed, guess you're going to have to root for Charlotte. I like to see her happy, but every now and again, I like to see her put in her place. And that was humorous to me.
As anybody with competition. I like this whole we're not friends aspect. I think it's working.
Yeah, but let's not drag it out too long.
Sure.
It can stand for now, but if you're gonna keep winning, let's build to the front. And I hope they probably will, because I get the feeling that's just what you do. But I hope it doesn't descend into the regular, like, we're gonna be tag team champions until we lose, and then we're gonna just turn on each other and we're gonna be the most bitter enemies. I just think that's a lazy way of doing it, or I won't say lazy. I think it's the easy way of doing it. I like when partnerships stay partnerships. I get if we go off to do other things or whatever, but why does that mean we have to be, at odds? Why can't okay, we lost the titles, I'm gonna go pursue some singles gold, you go pursue some singles gold, and let's just, it was fun while it lasted. I hope it's like that.
Yeah, I mean, outside of the injury angle, that's kind of what happened with the big three, excluding Naomi, because Naomi does actually have beef with the other two. Like, Jade and Bianca aren't necessarily beefing with one another. They just don't talk. One got injured and the other one went off to kind of go pursue a solo career. And with Bianca coming back in the near future, as they've been kind of alluding to, I doubt those two are going to be enemies. They'll probably just be respectful competitors.
Fair enough. So where are we at now? We've got
those were the first three. Next up was Sami Zayn and Karrion Kross, which, ugh.
I'm a fan of Sami, so anytime Sami wins, sure.
As am I.
So I'll rescind my previous statement where I said that was the only one that was narratively unsatisfying. This one was also narratively unsatisfying. I feel like Karrion probably, for the sake of the story, needed to win that match.
Yeah.
Or at the very least, like, either they needed to let Sami win Healy, so Karrion could have a moral victory or an immoral victory of some kind. Even though I'm not the biggest fan of that aspect, I kind of just wanted Karrion to straight up win, or he needed to just straight up win. But he needed to walk away with something.
Yeah.
He walked away with nothing.
Yeah.
And Sami continues to. I ultimately. Well, I don't even know if I can say that now that what's happened with CM Punk has happened, because my original mapping of the story was Seth is going to get this title back. I just knew that, even before he got Money in the Bank or whatever. Seth, as soon as he put this group together, he's going to become champion. But because Sami was the first person to say, you can shove it, I'm not down with any of that, and he got that beat down, I was like, okay, Seth is going to be the ultimate villain that underdog Sami is going to ultimately defeat. So if we're going in that direction, I understand why you don't want Sami losing, because Sami's got to build himself up to take down Frieza.
But he doesn't feel like an underdog anymore.
I know that's what people say. And I understand the rationale.
If nothing else, he was not an underdog in that fight with Karrion Kross.
True. But Sami still loses plenty. Like, Sami loses matches. Like, he still loses like important matches. In the King of the Ring tournament, as much as it would have been nice, he didn't win. Like, Randy beat him decisively. He's still not going in there when it really counts and consistently winning those. If he had his moment with Gunther, at WrestleMania, but think about that moment with Gunther. He was desperate to get on that card because every opportunity he had to get on the WrestleMania card, he was losing. And even now, he still loses a lot of the important stuff. The saga stories, he usually comes out on top because he's the good guy. He's everybody's favorite good guy. He's Uncle Sammy. He's got to go out there. He's got to go out there and he's got to put a smile on kids' faces and everything like that. But he don't lose. But even if he doesn't win all the time. But even if he did win all the time, think about the people he would be winning against. He's not beating serious competition. Like, beating a Karrion does not mean you're not an underdog. Because he's not beating Seth or Braun or Roman.
Well, we do know that he can beat Braun Breaker. The reason he lost last time is because Karrion jumped him before the match started. You put a fresh Sami Zayn in with a fresh Braun Breaker, and it's not as decisive as you would think because we've seen what that looks like.
We saw Sami beat a Braun that didn't take him seriously And then Braun came back the next time and said, all right, you know what, fine, whatever. And then he did take him seriously, speared that man twice in 6 minutes and beat him. And it was over. And I don't think they fought since, like really fought. So I would respectfully say that the only thing we know for certain is that I'm not playing around with you, Braun Breaker, kind of mops the floor with Sammy. Now, the argument could be made that maybe Sammy wasn't prepared for what a I'm not playing around with you, Braun Breaker looked like. So maybe that time he got caught off guard. So maybe next time if we get a legitimate match between the two of them, you can make the argument we have not seen a locked-in Sammy versus a locked-in Braun. I'll give you that. But as it stands, I do think it's pretty decisive.
That's fair. My personal thoughts on it is I actually am a relatively big Karrion Kross fan. When he first started, or when I first started watching, not so much. I thought his gimmick was kind of dumb. You know, the guy who sits in the shadows and predicts the future.
This is my devil on your shoulder look.
I see. And I was explaining this to the friends that we were watching with. I don't really know when I became a Karrion Kross fan, outside of his intro being one of the coolest in the business. Something just kind of like changed where I was like, you know what? It actually would be kind of nice to see a bit more Karrion Kross. I think it's because he like disappeared for a really long time and then came back out of nowhere. He joined up with the Final Testament.
Which went nowhere. The road to nowhere.
Yeah, they got dirted at Mania last year by Bobby Lashley, which like I'll always pick Bobby Lashley over anybody because Bobby Lashley's my guy. But yeah, then that went quiet, and he came back and he was doing the whole thing with Sammy again because he's been on and off with Sammy, and now that's like over definitively. I don't know. A lot of people think that he's not gonna stay with the WWE. If he does leave, I hope he either goes to TNA or to AEW. I just hope he goes somewhere where they're gonna give him some time.
Yeah, anywhere he goes, just let him be successful. 'Cause, yeah, you hate to see a guy that, I know it's a business, but you hate to see a guy that you as a fan enjoy, but the company's just not, giving it to you.
Yeah, he got over all by himself. Like everyone says that's what LA Knight did, which is true. But Karrion Kross really was just like, hey, look, I'm going to go to social media and I'm going to explain to the fans why you should love me. And the fans were like, hey, he kind of spitting though. And he doesn't ever get a chance to do it on TV because when he's on TV, he loses or he'll have like a gimmicky match and win that way, which like makes sense because he's a heel, and I'm not necessarily upset about that, but it would just be really nice to see Karrion Kross in a definitive match with mild to limited gimmicks because Scarlett's going to be there and you take what you get with that. I just want to see him be dominant, and I don't know we're going to get that within the year.
Yeah, my running joke with him before this like push started, anytime you show up on screen, I would lean over and I would say, Karrion, do you still wrestle? You can tell me. Like as if he had quietly kind of given up on it and he just, he was enjoying the paycheck, but he didn't feel like taking the bumps anymore. Maybe, it was just hurting his body too much, or maybe his wife asked him to stop doing it or whatever like that. So it was just like this carefully guarded secret. Because I was like, you keep showing up, but you're not doing nothing. So, yeah, what's next?
Jelly Roll and Randy Orton versus Drew McIntyre and Logan Paul, which like
I have nothing to say about that match. I'm not gonna lie to you. I have two things to say about that match. Anytime you nut up and get in that ring, props to you. It takes a lot of training, takes a lot of practice, and takes a lot of guts, and he did that. And bold choice to not only let the celebrity lose, but let Logan Paul pin him. Other than that, it was a match.
Yeah, they kind of gatekept Randy out of that match for a while. Randy was just kind of there to get the big spot. He comes in, he does the stuff that Randy Orton does. The big moment of the match is when Logan Paul is contractually obligated. This is a joke, by the way. Logan Paul is contractually obligated to do something most people would think is incredibly stupid and crazy at least once per big marquee match that he has, which is why a lot of people were upset with the last match that he had with AJ Styles, although we'll not talk about that because that match sucked. This time, he lays Jelly Roll out on the table, grabs 2 Prime bottles, climbs to the top rope, puts his shades on, clanks the 2 Prime bottles together, and then as high as he can, does a frog splash onto Jelly Roll, onto that table. And Jelly Roll died. Like, he was very much out of that match. And then they have this nice little narrative moment where they pick Jelly Roll up and he's like, oh, I'm hurt. And then he comes back in and he tries to save the match. And really him getting back in there to try and save the match is ultimately what causes him to lose. Not that Randy could have done it by himself, although Randy might have been able to. But he was getting jumped at the same time.
Yeah, he wasn't clearing both of them. Like it or not, Logan Paul actually is a good wrestler.
Sure. I don't take that from him.
And Drew is a contender. So like if you have to deal with somebody who's as tough to beat as Drew, even with minimal help, he's gonna beat you because it's gonna take everything you have to beat him.
Right. Yeah. Jelly Roll came back in to try and give Randy the sneak win. But then Jelly Roll himself got snuck. He got thrown out the ring. Or no, sorry, Randy got thrown out the ring. And then, yeah, Jelly Roll got hit with another frog splash, and Logan Paul ended up taking that match for him and Drew. Not a bad match. A fun time to watch, but not really much to talk about it. Which thus moves us into our main event, which was Gunther versus CM Punk. I'm going to go ahead and get my personal feelings out of the way, just so I can talk about this a bit more objectively later when you have points to bring up. I am a really big CM Punk fan. And the match itself, a lot of people that I've seen on the internet were kind of so-so about it. Not that it was necessarily a bad match, but just more so the fact that it wasn't high flying, it wasn't a spectacle. It was just more of like a technical standard wrestling match, like something you would get in like your high school gym.
I don't like that. It was
Well, when I say high school gym, I mean like, yeah, okay, that's perhaps a bit like diminutive. I just mean like it's not anything that you would see that WWE normally produces, right? It doesn't have a bunch of flashy spots. It doesn't have a bunch of high flying moves. It doesn't have a bunch of, over the top antics.
Because it was a scrap.
Yeah,
it was a scrap. He was like, "Yo, run me my ones," and then he just fought.
Yeah, and it was graps. It was just old school graps. And it was one of the It was one of the most grueling matches of CM Punk's career. You could just tell he looks so defeated after that match, but he wins. He ends up getting Gunther to a point where he can get him to bleed. How that happens is up for debate, and I'm not really here to discuss that. But he does end up making Gunther bleed, so much so to the point where Gunther is almost blinded by his own blood, and he's losing so much of it that he gets exhausted, he's fatigued, he gets hit with 2 GTSs, and CM Punk wins the match.
Dog, when he hit that first one, and Gunther's still on his, I'm like, yo, this man. I think I asked him like two times throughout the match, where I just asked the group collectively. I was like, I prefaced it both times. Like, I know it doesn't make sense as a question because we've already seen it happen, but genuinely, can this man be beaten? Because when he took that and he was still on his, I'm like, bro, this dude doesn't lose. When he got him in that chokehold, I was like, this dude doesn't lose. As much as it felt like the story made all the sense in the world for CM Punk to win, but I think that's what we talked about when we were talking about our predictions going into SummerSlam. That's the brilliance of Gunther. That's a real threat. That's what I want B&B to be, or any major heel that you're trying to convince me is here to actually shake it up. Because Gunther, no matter the day, circumstance, story going into it, no matter how feel good a moment it would be, when Gunther is the opponent, you cannot say definitively that he is not about to win, because he's Gunther, and you get that reputation by putting them in matches where, yeah, I know I'm going to hurt the audience's feelings by giving Gunther yet another win or sending another fan favorite to get pinned by him, sending you home sad. As much as you would love to see Pat McAfee beat him, it ain't going to happen. As much as you wanted Randy to win King of the Ring, it's not going to happen. As much as you wanted Jay to get that IC title, it's not going to happen, bro. Like, all these people that will go up against Gunther, you're like, today got to be the day. Because you really do not care about a child's tears. If you let Gunther beat this guy, oh, look, Gunther just beat that guy. So CM Punk hitting him with that and him still standing there, I was like, you have got to be kidding me, bro. He can't lose.
Yeah, it was scary. But he hits that second one and he takes it. And I was championing him all night. He came out in the Fantastic Four fit. We did that review. You know how we feel about that movie. And then the night takes a turn. I would say for the worst, but in this particular moment, it is not necessarily for the worst because Seth Rollins' music hits. And he comes out and he's on the crutches and he's got the knee brace. He points at the Money in the Bank briefcase that Paul Heyman is holding up, and he's like, your time is short, don't you worry, I'm coming for that. And he starts to walk away, and I'm like, okay, crisis. And then he drops the crutches, and just as I was about to be okay, I was very much not. He drops the crutches, he takes off the knee brace, he runs in with the briefcase, beats Punk like he stole something, cashes in, runs off with the belt, and that's the end of night one. And I didn't really have much in the way of words once all that went down, because this is where we get to the more subjective part of it. I have been really wanting nothing more than for CM Punk to have a belt and to just, be a part of that ecosystem. And he was for 5 minutes and 9 seconds. So, hey, I got what I wanted. But like also just how unceremoniously everything happened. The thing that really upset me was like I would have been fine if CM Punk had lost the belt to Seth Rollins if the way he lost the belt to Seth Rollins didn't feel so phony, right? Like, as I said, I'm not particularly a big fan of heels. So, like, when a person who is face turns heel, that's usually where I'm like, okay, well, this is my stop. I guess I'll go ahead and get off now. And when Seth Rollins ended that triple threat at Mania, standing tall, and, Paul Heyman turned on him, I was like, okay, cool. Well, I was already having some reservations with you with all of this going on. Now I really can just lean into the fact that I don't particularly like you. And just the smarmy nature of faking an injury to be that petty. I'm just like, I mean, I guess you got it, bro, but like I was hurt. So that's all of night one. I'll let you talk about any remaining thoughts that you have before we move into night two.
I was riding with you. I'm still riding with you. I'm sorry that had to happen to you. The moment was depressing without that, but it's just extra depressing because that was your guy, and I really enjoyed that moment of victory where we were all like, okay, cool. My heart started to sink because we've been watching long enough to know. I was like, the pyro didn't go off, and he's still in the ring. And we kept looking, because it's the same thing we said at 40 when Drew had the title, and I was like, leave. Get out of the ring, or at least show the credits so I can breathe easy. And I wasn't seeing that.
Well, remember, that was the first match, so... And also, we were there.
No, I'm talking about the credits. SummerSlam. I was like, either get out of the ring or start showing the credits or do the pyro. Like, give me some indication that you've committed to this as the ending. And the longer it was going on, I was like, it's not looking good, bro. But
I don't feel so good, Mr. Stark.
Yeah, the facts. And I also getting into subjective nature, and I don't take anything back about how I was legitimately on CM Punk's side, and I did really want that for you. And I do want CM Punk to get that title back, which is why I said what I said about Sammy. I don't necessarily know if I still want to see Sammy be the one to beat Seth, because you could argue that CM Punk deserves it more now. But there is a part of me that's like, CM Punk was playing Seth's role just last year when it came to Drew, where he had just such a seething hatred for Drew that even matches that didn't involve him, like he was just like, I'm just gonna be here to make sure you don't succeed, and that's just gonna be that because whatever. And now you're on the receiving end of that. And as much, and I'm not saying like karma's I'm not saying that like I relish in you paying for what you did. I am, however, saying that when I got off of the CM Punk is right to be antagonizing Drew bandwagon, it wasn't arbitrary or just because I don't like Punk. I do genuinely believe there is a point in time where your issues, you've taken them too far. Now Seth is the one who's now taking it too far, and you have to get over the fact that whatever between you and Punk happened, the way I was selling Punk, that you got to get over whatever happened between you and Drew, because it was the whole summer of you just can't let this go, and you need to sit, like you're ruining his opportunities and blah blah blah. Now it's happening to you, and I'm still like, I'm not gonna make excuses for Seth because now Seth is the one who is letting his hatred go too far. But I can quiet, but I can't silence that part of my brain that's like, CM Punk, part of this is you get what you give. But it's a very small part, but I can't completely dismiss it because I was angry at him for that very same reason just last year. I mean, it was our first major wrestling video we did was why I was team Drew McIntyre throughout that whole thing. So I hope he can go back to formula as it.
Yeah.
Hope this will finally be his time to win the Rumble.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Sammy's gonna win it because they're gonna be in Saudi, but
Hey, listen, you know how WWE loves to make you lose in front of your people.
Yeah, but I think Saudi is like, I think they're contractually. I think they have Stephanie McMahon chained to a radiator every time they go to a Saudi show, and it's like if you don't, it's over.
Bro, they have all our oil. They're
like
we will shut it down.
So,
we'll turn it off.
Like, so yeah, that's night one.